up, everybody? Welcome back to another Wisdom Girl and Wise Women show. It's your girl, Carmel Miller, aka Wisdom Girl, and this is.
Hey, everybody. This is Wise Woman, Leslie Christie.
And today we are going to be talking about racism in America, aka 2020.
Yes. Well, upon our research for this show, and we did do some research for the show, we found an article from UNICEF, and it states this truth. It can be hard to talk to your children about racism. Some parents worry about exposing their children to issues like racism and discrimination at such an early age. But others, they shy away from talking about something they themselves might not fully understand or don't even feel comfortable discussing. Yet others, especially those who have experienced racism, simply do not have such choices. So, conversations about racism and discrimination will look different for each family. Isn't that right, Wisdom Girl? You can pick it up right here.
So true. It's going to look different. One family might listen, there's this thing that goes with black people. Or some parents might be like, listen, you're going to experience racism in life, okay?
Mhm.
They just might drop it on them just like that. Like, wow, how do I process that? It wasn't broken down for me.
Yeah. So, while there's no one size fits all approach, the science is very clear. The earlier parents start the conversation with their children, the better. And why is this, Wisdom Girl?
Because being silent is not an option.
Is not an option.
Well, today we are talking about racism in America. We know it's a sensitive topic and cannot be fully tackled in a 30-minute show, but we feel the need to say something about it on our platform. And prayerfully, it will impact adults to start having these type of conversations with kids. And it's very, very necessary. That will only make their kids stronger, wiser, and better.
Amen to that one. Yes. So here's some historical facts for you. Racism against various ethnic or minority groups has existed in the United States since the early colonial era. I know that's hard for some of you to believe, but it's been around for a very long time. Before 1865, most African Americans were enslaved. Whew. And even after that, and they had to face severe restrictions on their political, social, and economic freedoms. Although formal racism, racial discrimination, I should say, was largely banned by the mid 20th century and over time, racial politics remains a major phenomenon, and racism has uncovered extensive evidence of racial discrimination in various sectors of modern US society, including the criminal justice system, business, the economy, housing, healthcare, the media, and politics. So, in the view of the United Nations and the United States Human Rights Network, discrimination in the United States permeates all aspects of life and extends to all communities of color. Wow.
Wow,
that,
that was
that was a mouthful.
it wasn't only a mouthful, it was so historically
Yeah.
accurate.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, there's some examples of racism toward African Americans, like police shootings. I'm talking about, well, not really a shooting, but police
Like
murders, and
yeah.
just those like I'm have to go back to 2020. Those the worst year ever.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it was the bad year, but you know what? We got through it, and now we're in 2022, living
Yeah.
the best life. And
Yeah.
also the shooting in Buffalo. I think, yeah, the shooting in Buffalo by a
Yeah.
racist 8-year-old.
18-year-old.
So, oh, 18-year-old, not 8-year-old, 18-year-old. Oh my
Whew.
God.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
And, you know, young Black children are taught very little about their history. And honestly, something needs to be done about it because I don't know where I came from and how do I understand where I'm going to be going.
Wow. Yeah. This conversation has to be talked about, and parents and educators and grandparents and churches have to talk about racism with young people, because unfortunately they don't learn this in school, right, Wisdom Girl? You guys are not learning about your race, your culture. You're not even learning about how we contributed to America, and we've contributed in a huge way to American society, and that is not spoken about. Who are some of the people that you hear about year after year after year?
Wow.
Because it's
Um,
basically the same people each year, right?
yeah, Martin Luther King,
Mhm.
Rosa Parks, Claudette Colvin. But what about the people now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Beyonce, Cicely Tyson, rest in
Hmm.
peace. Chadwick Boseman,
Hmm.
Kamala Harris counts too. I
Yes.
mean,
Yeah.
come on, Kamala Harris counts too. Michelle Obama.
Right.
Um,
So let me ask you, so those contemporary voices and those contemporary people that you know of in your generation, schools don't talk about them either? Wow. Wow. Okay. So you don't talk about your past, your history, which is important, because if you don't talk about like the Fannie Lou Hamers, if you don't talk about like the Bethune McLeods, if you don't talk about those who were enslaved, um,
well,
like,
let me say this. I don't know. Me, you have to ask my brother that question because me and my brother are in two different classes. My teacher doesn't talk about them,
okay.
but
Oh,
you have to ask him that personally because I don't know the answer to for him. But I know we don't talk about them.
okay. So if your class doesn't talk about it, then chances are there's other classes that don't, because there is something in education now, because of everything that has transpired in 2020 due to COVID, where schools are more careful as to how they talk about race and how they talk about different things, not just African Americans. We happen, by the way, our audience, we happen to be talking about African Americans for two reasons. One, because we're African American, but two, because African Americans were the most discriminated, the most marginalized, even now, the most ostracized group in America. And so we have to keep the flashlight on what happened to us. And a lot of the things that we deal with today has to do with what happened in the past. And the sad thing is that no one talks about it. And I'm gonna tell you, wisdom girl, why some of this stuff hasn't been talked about is because during slavery, they separated our families, ripped fathers from their families, ripped children from their families, And so the storyline, the history, the storytelling did not continue because the families were broken up. Can you
Mm,
imagine like being taken from your family? That's disheartening to even think about. It
I'm not
really.
gonna picture anything I haven't lived. I'm confused. I did not know. I honestly, and I'm gonna tell you, I did not know that um we were the most humans to actually face discrimination. I thought that it was actually Asian, like the
Mm,
Japanese culture, of
mhm,
Chinese culture, of
mhm.
Asian culture. I did not know that. And Thailand culture, I don't know.
Yeah. But I believe the reason why you feel that way is because that's the topic of today, and so it's like current events. That's what's happening now, and so that's what's being talked about. But they were not enslaved. They chose to come to America. Americans, or rather African Americans, were enslaved. We were ripped from our homeland, from our home country, and brought to America. But here's the thing, though. Here is the thing. Even though we were ripped from our culture, from our country, from what we knew, from all the languages that we knew, even the religion that we was familiar with, right? Even though that happened, we were able to adapt very quickly. Imagine this. You go to a foreign country, right? Like when you and I go to Paris, we don't speak French. We might be able to say a few words now just because the world is different, and you can, you can pick up a dictionary or something and learn, get on the internet and learn a few words. Oui, bonjour, all that, right? And use it appropriately. But back then, none of this was a thing. It was never a thing. And
None of
so,
it mattered.
yeah, and there was no internet, there was no computer, there were no phones, there were no nothing, there were no cars, there was nothing, no electricity, nothing. And so we come to this foreign country. We don't speak the language, we don't even know the currency, we don't even know how the people look. They look very different than us. And we learn the language, and we learn the culture, and we adapt to this country, right? And we begin to build things and invent things and make a major impact in American society. But yet, even to today, people want to not acknowledge the great impact that we made in building this country. Even the White House would not stand had it not been for an African American man. Come on, somebody.
Um,
Yes, because it was an African American, who built it, who mapped it out. So the lights that we use every day, you know, an African American was the one who invented the filament that you need in order to create the light. So it goes on and on and on and on and on.
and I'm gonna tell our viewers this, but you might not know this. But actually, you may think, "Oh, Harriet Tubman went to the Underground Railroad." But that is true. She did go through the Underground Railroad, but
Mhm.
there wasn't much for slaves that attempted to be free
Mhm.
to run to, because we weren't 50 states; we were 13 colonies,
Come on, girl, say
including
that
New
again.
York.
Yes, come on, because a lot of
Um,
people don't realize that. Come on, say that one more time. Bring it home, wisdom girl.
well, we were 13 colonies, so obviously, and I'm not trying to say, oh, why would God want that one specific person to go because she was special or whatever? No,
Mhm.
because before you do something, you have to have the mindset and plan it out.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
planned this out since she was like a little girl,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
she was doing this and she up until she was, I'm gonna assume, at least 50 something,
Yeah.
because she died at like 90.
Yeah. And that's amazing, her story, because like you said, she thought this as a little girl. She would have dreams about it, right?
Right, she
And
would have visions, like
visions. Yeah.
visions, because she was trying to save a slave from getting whooped, and she just jumped right in front, and then she just got slammed in
Yeah.
the head, and then she fell out, and then she had like so many visions of it. And
Mhm.
the reason why she actually thought about it was because, honestly, I'm gonna tell you,
Tell us.
her sisters were separated away from her, and she was gonna get sold away too.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna just tell you this. I forgot what I was about to say, but what I'm trying to tell you
Mhm.
is that along the way, when she was actually going, she actually met a few of her family.
Yeah.
I know she saw two of her brothers, and her name actually, half of her name actually came from her her mother, actually.
Right.
So,
Because her name really wasn't Harriet Tubman. Initially, that was not her name, but she became Harriet Tubman over time. That's the name she gave herself. That was what she gave herself. And as a matter of fact, speaking of names, all of us, all of us African Americans, our names came from slaveholders. None of us know our real name, historically speaking, like what tribe we come from. None of us know that because our names came from slaveholders. For instance, I'm gonna give you one. Okay, it's gonna blow your mind. You ready for it?
mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. What is your great grandfather's last name? And we all are part of that family. What's his last name?
Skinner?
Say it loud so people can hear you.
Skinner?
Skinner, yes. So that name came from it was given because the job was to skin the animals or to skin certain things, right? It was attached to the job that was given. That's how that name Skinner came to be. So we all, and we could go down the line. Listen, audience, if you think your name, unless you have an African or European, an Asian name or something like that, if your name is rooted and planted in America, you either have a name that describes the job that this family who were enslaved that way back then, doesn't mean it is your personal family. Well, it is your family, but it either describes the job that they did or you have the name of your slaveholder. Williams, a slaveholder's name. Smith, slaveholder's name. Come on, we could go down the line. That's the truth, and we need to accept the truth. And this is the kind of stuff our children need to know so that they understand their history. But it really doesn't matter the name that you have. What matters is your character. How good are you? How are you living? You know, what kind of life are you living? What are you telling your children? How are you living in front of your children? My God. What were you getting ready to say, Wisdom
I
Girl?
was actually going to ask you, what about Malcolm X's name? Now, you may think his last name was X, but actually, that's not true. His last name was actually Malcolm Shabazz.
Well, that was the name he changed it to. That was the name he changed it to because he didn't like the name that he originally had. So
his name was really Malcolm X?
no.
I was
His
like,
name was,
what?
but when he became a slave, not a slave, oh my God, when he became a Muslim,
Popular.
when he became a Muslim,
Oh.
because believe it or not, he came from a Baptist family. Like his father was a Baptist preacher. I believe it was his father, right? And
his grandfather, one of them.
yeah. And so he began to understand, or he began to listen to, like he lived a life of crime. So he began to listen to Muslims, right? And so long story short, because we're not here to talk about him, but when he adapted the Muslim faith, he did not know what his last name was. He did not want to have a slave's name. So that's why his name, he used the letter X at the end of his name. That's how he became Malcolm X, until he changed his name to a Muslim name, which is rooted in some African cultures. So
I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
the reason why I said that was because there was this book where it was like where that I have in my library at school, and it's called Betty Before X.
Meaning Betty before she married Malcolm
X. So I was like, oh.
Yeah. So even with
like,
you raising that, right? That just shows us it's so much to know, so much to learn. Thank God you saw that book, right? Because if you didn't see that book, you would have never knew to even think about those things. When I was in school, we always learned about our history. That was a requirement. We had African American history classes. Even in elementary school, we learned. But, you know, people get involved and politics change and different things happen. And now the world is different, and our children suffer because they don't know who they really are or where they came from. But we want to make sure that on this show that we give people some wisdom. We can't do it all in 30 minutes like Wisdom Girl said, but we did want to talk in some sense about racism in America, that it still is happening, y'all. It's still happening. And I know that you know that, but we need you to be so aware that you make our children aware, educating our children as it relates to this topic. Isn't that right, Wisdom Girl?
I would have never thought of it that way. But you know, we you can't always get what you want from a history book because that was written by a human, not by God. So,
And it wasn't written by Black people either.
well, most of them, like this book I have, By Any Means Necessary, a biography by Walter D. Myers. He wrote that book.
Right. But I thought you was talking about like literal history books, like history books you get in
Yeah,
school.
most of them were actually written by
They were
Black
written by,
people, but I've
by
never
white.
seen one. No, this is historically.
Yeah. You can get history books written by you know, our own culture, but you won't find those books not in the elementary, junior high school, maybe in the high school, depending on where you go. And you can find it in colleges. And depending on the college you go to determines how many you will get. So once you get to college, you're more exposed to more things. Thank God for that. But I believe that this education needs to start at a young age. Of course, what you teach someone in college, you're not going to teach a child in elementary school, but you need to expose them. They need not to walk around thinking, you know, that we live a life of peaches and cream. You know, no, because they will have experiences that can attack them emotionally. Even you, Wisdom Girl, had an experience, you know, a racist experience that shocked you, that rocked you, you know. And if you didn't have a family who talks about it, who knows how you would have reacted and what would have happened, you know?
I probably would have started crying and throwing my pillow against the room, most
Mm-hmm.
likely. But I actually just reported the person,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I know you've had your experience before.
I have had experiences before, absolutely. You know, I've had experiences in college, I've had experiences in elementary, maybe junior high school, you know, but because I'm older, that's why I have experiences. And it was something that you expected at that time. You know, you expected it. Doesn't mean we liked it, but we knew what was happening. We knew what the deal was. We knew, you know, racism was real and people weren't pleased with us. As a matter of fact, they knew. Let me tell you something. Society knows how powerful we are. I'm talking about African Americans. They know our gifts, our talents, what we bring to the table, what we have, how we have built America. And this is why we continuously have to fight this fight, because people want to admit, most people, a lot of people, let me say it like that. A lot of people don't want to admit how powerful we are and the contributions we made. No other race has been enslaved in America and have conquered and learned this culture, this language, and built this country like African Americans. Nobody else has done it.
Actually, people have been enslaved just like African Americans, and those are those of Native American heritage. Now, you may not understand,
Right. Yeah.
Pocahontas is actually a real person. Sacagawea it might be hard to say that 3 times fast.
Mhm. Right.
Sacagawea, and there's some other people who have done some things, but
Yeah. Let me just correct myself before you go on. Let me say, I'm not saying that other cultures weren't enslaved or didn't contribute. What I'm saying is that our culture has done things that no other culture was able to do or have done. The Indians were already here. They were not forced here. They
Right.
were
And I'm gonna
here
tell you
already.
something.
Okay,
You
go
want to
ahead.
know who didn't actually, Christopher Columbus. Everyone's trying to always get the credit, but Christopher Columbus didn't find America first.
No, not at all.
Neither did what's his name? Neither did the Pilgrims.
Right.
Not African Americans. Native Americans found them first,
Absolutely.
and that's when they actually became the 13 colonies.
Yep. Yep.
They
Yep.
named them New York, Pennsylvania,
Maine,
Hampshire, Maine.
Delaware. Yeah. All
I
of
didn't
those.
even know Delaware,
Yeah.
Kentucky. No, not Kentucky.
All of them on like the East Coast,
East
southern
Coast.
East Coast, southern.
Mm,
Yeah.
kind of Virginia.
Yeah. And then because of the wars, it began to grow and develop.
It began to grow because of the war. That was actually the Civil War about because of Abraham Lincoln and what he did. Anyway,
Yeah.
this is not a history lesson.
Yeah, right. We kind of went all over the place, but we just wanted to touch on this just a little bit about racism in America, and I'm sure we will do other shows that talk about it. But really quickly, in the last minute or so that we have, we want to just tell you about some movies that you can allow your children to see, to look at. Um, you know, just to kind of get them to understand. Sometimes the conversation is hard, but then you can give them a chance to understand it from a different perspective. So there are 5 movies we're going to name really quickly. We don't have time to explain it. But one is Pride, right? And by the way, all of these are true stories. So one is Pride. What's the next one?
Hidden Figures,
Yep. Remember the Titans,
Invictus.
right? And Glory Road.
Wait, we
So,
have another one. We have to acknowledge
uh-huh.
Harriet. Okay. You're good.
Yes, Harriet. Yes, absolutely. Good job. Good job. Yeah. So get these films, show them to your young people. As a matter of fact, sit down as a family and watch these movies or one of the movies, and then you be able to kind of unpack the story and talk about it. Hey, what a great family night that would be. All
Right.
right, everybody. We've got to go. We have ended our time. As a matter of fact, we've gone over just a tad, but thank you so much for being with us today, for listening to this, a little bit about racism in America. And we hope that you come back next week, same time, same place. Yes, for Wisdom Girl, Wise Woman. You know all the places to connect with us. Wisdom Girl, go ahead, let them know real quickly how they can connect with us.
Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Yeah. And our website, www.wisdomgirlwisewoman.com.
Yes. So thank you all so much for being here, and we will see you next week. Bye bye, everybody.